Ever since the death of George Floyd, we have seen the left practically engage in full 1984 style, policies and actions, rewriting history, right? Book burnings, book bannings, right? We are going beyond, beyond what George Orwell and Ray Bradbury predicted. It's insane, right? The left now wants to topple statues of Teddy Roosevelt, especially the one in the American Museum of Natural History, because Teddy Roosevelt was a racist, despite Roosevelt being literally a progressive at the time. Like he really was. He was a progressive individual, but he was still a racist because he viewed Cubans, Puerto Ricans, and Filipinos as problematic, right? He had racist attitudes towards them, but so did the entire nation at the time. So if everyone does it at the time, if it's normalized, what's the problem, right? Was not just Teddy Roosevelt. Now we're going with the vandalism of statues. Now Donald Trump said, "What's next? Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, right?" Because the left only wanted Confederate statues to be taken down, right? Because they glorify, the Confederacy, and I can get that point though. Now I'm not in favor of destroying the statues. If anything, remove the statues, put them in a museum, and then replace them with a plaque, right? Put a plaque that says, "Here used to lie the statue of Robert E. Lee, Confederate general," right? But I'm not in favor of destroying our history. I think people need to know their history, otherwise, they're going to be bound to repeat it. Just like that cop in Portland, saying how these people, these Black Lives Matter activists who are saying they're fighting against racism, are using the exact same intimidation tactics and the exact same racist tactics that the KKK used against his community. Right? It's insane. But again, these people don't care about their history. But again, that's my opinion. I'm not in favor of destroying statues. But now, as the left keeps going after statues that have nothing to do with the Confederacy or slavery for that matter, now they're going after statues of Ronald Reagan. They vandalized a statue of Ronald Reagan, which I think it's insane. Now, even before I became more right leaning, I considered Ronald Reagan as the top Republican president in the history of the United States, the Republican Party for that matter, right? Ronald Reagan, followed by Lincoln, because I think Lincoln he didn't finish his second term, so there wasn't much for me to judge Lincoln on. Now, granted, Lincoln did lead the charge in abolishing slavery, but again, I can't judge Lincoln and Reagan on the same terms because Reagan he finished his 2 terms. Lincoln did not, so I can't really judge him. But to not piss off the people who are great fans of Lincoln, I'm gonna reassess my rankings of presidents. Lincoln followed by Reagan. Let's go with that. But again, that's just my opinion, of course. But the point is, before I was conservative, I recognized that Ronald Reagan did a lot of good for this country, right? And that was at the time where I was being told that the Republicans are bad people, which I didn't believe, by the way. Well, now they're going after statues of Ronald Reagan. And now they're going to statues of Abraham Lincoln. Now, this statue that I'm showing you right here shows a picture of Abraham Lincoln holding the Emancipation Proclamation in his right hand and having his left hand over that of a slave. Now, who was this slave specifically? Well, apparently this specific slave, went by the name of Archer Alexander, who apparently was the last slave captured under the Fugitive Slave Act. Apparently, that's what the statue is supposed to commemorate. But people are demanding that they take the statue down because they are saying that it's a portrait of white supremacy. The white president, he who holds the power, standing before the subservient black slave kneeling before him. That's what the left views in this, okay? And that was on July 29th. And now even companies like Aunt Jemima and Eskimo Pies are renaming their products because they're deemed as racist. So, if we're going into the past, right, we're saying we're gonna erase these things because we find them offensive now. We're gonna get rid of these statues because we find them offensive now. I don't even know why they would go after a statue of Lincoln. Do they not know what Lincoln did? The guy actually led the charge in ending slavery, but the left doesn't seem to care about that. Well, now a congressman in, a congressman, he has decided that he's going to play by the left's very own rules. And he says that the left is going to cancel things they deem racist, specifically because they did racist things in the past. Then we should get rid of the Democratic Party. We should rename the party because of its racist ties to the KKK, the support of Jim Crow laws and segregation, we should rename this party because it is offensive to the people of today. Great, great thing. Now, I don't know if he really meant it. It was probably like a more tongue-in-cheek bill that he introduced. But hey, if the Democrats are going to be doing that to the Founding Fathers, saying, oh, the Founding Fathers are offensive, we must remove their statues because they had slaves. Well, we should probably get rid of the Democratic Party because they supported slavery. Yep. But let's see what the title has to say. Congressman introduces bill that would have Democrat Party change name or be barred from participation in the House due to past support of slavery and the Confederacy. Man, this guy, like I said, if this guy's serious, props on him. We're playing by the same rules of the left. And here's the reason why. Here's the reason why he's doing this. Like I said, it may be like a tongue-in-cheek thing. Maybe if he's serious, okay, maybe this guy has a lot of courage. But Nancy Pelosi, apparently, she wanted to remove 4 portraits of individuals from previous speakers because they served in the Confederacy. Yep, you heard me right. Nancy Pelosi said we are going to remove these images of the previous 4 speakers in our history because they had ties to the Confederacy. That's what she did. So this guy decides to play by her own rules, and I'm pretty sure the Democrats are not going to follow the rules because you know how they are. Rules for thee, but not for me. Silly peasants, rules are for you, not for the rich elite like myself. That's the logic of these individuals. But again, props to this congressman. Now let's go into the article. Representative Louis Gohmert, I think he pronounced it Gohmert, a Republican from Texas, introduced a bill Thursday on the floor of the House of Representatives that would ban the Democrat Party due to their history of having supported slavery in the Confederacy, saying that this standard to which they are holding everyone else, so the name change needs to occur. Bravo, Representative Gohmert, bravo. You're gonna hold these people to an impossible standard, then you must follow that standard. Otherwise, it's called hypocrisy, and that's why people don't take you seriously. Hence, for example, with going on with Black Lives Matter. George Floyd dies. Everyone riots. A 1-year-old boy gets shot in New York. Nobody panics. A retired police officer dies. Nobody panics, even though the police officer was black. You want to know why they don't panic? Because the person who was behind that murder wasn't a white person. For the Black Lives Matter movement, they only care about black lives and when it's a white person perpetrating the crime, right? That's what they do. Even Don Lemon even said that Black Lives Matter isn't about, all black lives, right? It's about specifically, and I quote because Don Lemon said this, it's specifically focusing on fighting against police brutality. And he said to Terry Crews, if you want to create a movement that says all Black Lives Matter, then start that movement. I thought Black Lives Matter was about all black lives, but apparently Black Lives Matter is only about some black lives that matter, right? The ones that fit their narrative. And again, props to this representative. You're going to hold us to an impossible standard, then you're going to have to follow those same standards. Props on them. Whereas on June 18th of 2020, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi ordered the removal from the Capitol portraits of 4 previous speakers of the House who served in the Confederacy, saying that these portraits set back our nation's work to confront and combat bigotry. Gohmert said, the men depicted in the portraits were Democrat Robert M.T. Hunter, Democrat Howell Cobb, Democrat James L. Orr, and Democrat Charles F. Crisp. And if you noticed, not a single Republican in that name. Because, believe it or not, it was the Democrats who supported slavery. It was the Democrats who enacted the Fugitive Slave Act. They advocated for it. During the time of Jim Crow, it was the Democrats who were advocating for segregation. It was the Democrats who created the Black Codes. Yep. And it was the Democrats who founded the KKK. And it was the Democrats who were for segregation. Yep. Democrats did all of that, but they don't tell you in history class anymore. They don't. If you have a history teacher that actually tells you which party founded those horrible, horrible groups like the KKK and enacted such horrible policies like segregation and black codes, if you have a teacher who tells you that the Democratic Party actually started those things, then you have a good history teacher. You really do. Not a lot of teachers are gonna have the courage to say that nowadays, and I guarantee you, when I become a teacher, you bet that I'm gonna teach my students about the history of the Democratic Party. But anyways, let's keep going. Resolved that the Speaker of the House of Representatives shall remove any item that named symbolizes or mentions any political organization or party that has ever held a public position that supported slavery or the Confederacy from any area within the House wing of the Capitol or any House office building and shall donate such item or symbol to the Library of Congress. And two, that any political organization or party that has ever held a public position that supported slavery of the Confederacy shall either change its name or be barred from participation in the House of Representatives. Gomer concluded. With that, I would yield back. Man, this guy playing by the rules of the left, and he's doing it so awesomely in an awesome manner. Right? It's so beautiful to watch when the left thinks that we're gonna set these impossible standards. Oh, we're so smarter than the conservatives. We are gonna enact these impossible standards because we need to attack them for being racist. And yet, then they're holding the standard when someone says, Uno reverse card, bitch. That's what they're going to do. Reverse card, boom. You're gonna set up that standard? Well, we're going to play by your rules, and you're not going to like them. And that's what this man is doing. Props to this man. Props to this man. Again, seriously, to Representative Louis Gohmert, props to you, man. I applaud you. The left set the standard. Now let them follow it. That's their standard. Those are their rules. They can't get mad at their own rules. And if they don't want to enforce their own rules, then they look like hypocrites, and it doesn't look good either. In a tweet, Gohmert wrote, "The time has come for Democrats to acknowledge their party's loathsome and bigoted past and consider changing their party name to something that isn't so blatantly and offensively tied to slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination, and the KKK. Hashtag cancel Democrats." As outlined in the resolution, a great portion of the history of the Democratic Party is filled with racism and hatred, Gohmert said in a statement. Says people are demanding we rid ourselves of the entities, symbols, and reminders of the repugnant aspects of our past. And the time has come for Democrats to acknowledge their party's loathsome and bigoted past and consider changing their party name to something that isn't so blatantly and offensively tied to slavery, Jim Crow, discrimination, and the Ku Klux Klan. As the country watches violent leftists burn our cities, tear down our statues, and call upon every school, military base, and city street to be renamed, it is important to note that the past atrocities these radicals claim to be so violently offensive were largely committed by members in good standing of the Democratic Party, Gohmert continued. Whether it be supporting the most vile forms of racism and actively working against civil rights legislation, Democrats in this country perpetuated these abhorrent forms of discrimination and violence practically since their party's inception. Yep, Andrew Jackson, a Democrat. You know he was behind a large portion of the genocide of the Native Americans? You mean to tell me the Trail of Tears was not Andrew Jackson's doing? Well, it was. The Supreme Court said, you cannot do that, Andrew Jackson. And what did Andrew Jackson say? A little history lesson here. Andrew Jackson said his most famous words, "The Chief Justice has made a decision. Let him enforce it." That was a tongue-in-cheek insult saying that the Supreme Court can rule all they want. They can make all these rulings on certain and specific cases, but it's the president's job to enforce the law. And Andrew Jackson said, you might say I can't do this, but I'm the one who enforces the law, and I'm not going to enforce that law. So he ended up removing those Native Americans anyway, hence the Trail of Tears. Gohmert concluded, to avoid triggering innocent bystanders by the racist past of the Democratic Party, I would suggest they change their name. That is the standard to which they are holding everyone else, so the name change needs to occur. I applaud this man. This man is playing by the rules of the left, and I guarantee you, they're going to start changing their tune very soon. Nancy Pelosi thought, I'm going to remove the pictures of 4 former speakers because they had ties to the Confederacy. Okay, you want to play that game? Well, let's change your party name. And if you refuse to do so, then you should be barred from entering Congress because your party supported slavery. That's standard that they're holding everyone, so they need to live up to that standard. But knowing how the left and the Democrats are, they don't follow their own standards. Rules for thee, but not for me. That's the motto of the Democrats. But again, that's just me. What do you guys think? Do you think this bill, if it passes, do you think Democrats are gonna be happy about this? Do you think this congressman has a point? That if we're gonna be canceling things because of their offensive racist past, should we cancel the Democratic Party? I think we should. I mean, the Democratic Party has done a lot of atrocities in the past, and guess what? No one's talking about it. Why? Because history teachers are not doing the jobs anymore. That's my opinion. They're not teaching which party did what. They're not telling you which party started the KKK. They're just saying the KKK is a far-right group, and then assume that the Republicans did it because Republicans are more conservative. They seem more on the right. But again, I don't know. I think this bill is more like a tongue-in-cheek thing, right, to expose the hypocrisy of the Democrats. But if it was a serious bill, I'm all for it. Like I said, seems like a tongue-in-cheek thing. But if this is serious, by all means, man, hopefully it passes, but I doubt it. But anyways, I'll see you guys next time. Hope you guys have a good night. Again, subscribe, share, like the video, helps out a lot, and I'll see you guys next time.